Today on Behind the Ops, we're joined by Alan Porter, a serial builder who doesn't just start companies, he engineers them from idea to scale. Alan has spent more than 2 decades operating at the intersection of science, strategy, and execution. He's founded and scaled businesses across AI, biotech, beverages, and senior living, from launching multiple craft breweries and Georgia's first dedicated cannabinoid beverage brewery to building and operating 11 senior living communities across the Southeast. Most recently, Alan is the mind behind Moral in AI, a patent pending ethical framework designed to bring accountability and explainability into artificial intelligence. And he's the founder of THC Chill, a next generation functional beverage brand blending science, flavor, and operational discipline in an emerging market. What ties all of this together is Alan's ability to take complex ideas, navigate regulation, capital, and operations, and turn the vision into real, functioning businesses. This conversation goes beyond the highlights and gets into the decisions, the trade offs, and the systems behind building companies that actually work. Let's go behind the ops with Alan Porter. Alan, how are you today?
I'm doing the best I could be. How about you?
Hanging in. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I appreciate it very much. Why don't we start off with telling everybody a little bit about you and kind of your operational, organizational, entrepreneurial background?
Sure. I'm probably a little bit different. My name is Alan Porter. I got out of college from Duke, and I started working with my dad, who was a developer inside the Atlanta community. He had done a few senior housings in his life and was getting into hotels, and I worked with him and his partner. Um, we ended up splitting off and doing an assisted living, this one with me and my dad. So I learned how to do that at a very young age. That business was still starting to grow back in the 2005 era. That's when I finished college. Anyways, um, first one was a learning experience, but right after that, I realized that, like anything else, this thing could be repeated over and over and over again. So I would go out and find tracts of land that would fit the property. Um, this is before AI, but just trying to think about reasoning. I'd say, okay, well, I need this size of land. Right now, people are still selling it for pretty cheap because it was right after the bank crashes of the 2009, 2010 era. So I could get land for next to nothing. Lots of people had invested in it and done nothing with it. Um, I did that all over the Southeast. So I find parcels, find where the demographics look similar. Southeast is pretty much Southeast, but besides Florida, which they'll say is way different. But that's in terms of what people eat on a menu, the type of decisions people make, things like that. Assisted living state by state, or in terms of boundary crossing, but in terms of doing the same look and feel, ended up doing one model that looked the same north of Florida and one model that looked the same in Florida, but it was the same footprint and the same way it started. So I guess I might be talking too fast, but I'm talking about scalability. So I started learning something young, but it doesn't even have to be at a young age. It's just you learn how to do something the right way. You realize you're a little bit ahead. We were at the time. We definitely were, and people are still figuring out senior housing. It hadn't been aggregated yet. It's still run by mom and pops. Um, that phase is pretty much ending with my generation, who was bought them all from their parents. Um, and it's been consolidated. But the contrast is that you're not sitting in pools of cash while you're building them. But
Yeah.
anybody who's in real estate knows that's typically how it goes. You get paid when something sells. Otherwise, you're sitting poor for a few years. So that's just real estate. Um, that's my start is the real estate background. I think some of the more interesting things we could talk about was you told me before the show what are people interested in or what do you like to talk about? It's a real estate's my background for entrepreneurship. I'm a Duke, an Emory MBA, and I actually have a certificate in senior housing from MIT. But I did other fun stuff along the way. So I started to do real estate for too long. Realized I was kind of stuck in it and stuck in a rut. Uh, beer started to be popular. This was probably, oh my gosh, I was homebrewing before everybody else. It feels like around 2015, I got really into it. And so we had 3 or 4 breweries in the Indiana area at that point. That's it. There's Sweetwater and a couple other ones. Sweetwater's still around. That's been aggregated too. So that started as a mom and pop business, and that's going to be a common theme over the past 20 years.
Sure.
And you can stop me whenever because I feel like
No,
I'm just
this is
reading from like
fine. It's setting
a
the
topic.
stage. I love it.
Sure, right. So, I saw beer was popular. I could make it pretty well 'cause you can enter competitions around your city, wherever you are, even today, and compete with people who are making it. And home brewers run circles around commercial brewers because then you can get specific products instead of having to buy in massive bulk. You just overpay for a little bit of one,
Sure.
and it's fun. So I'm going on a tangent, but I'm coming back full circle. That's the brewery scene. So it was just started out. I loved it, and I thought, well, maybe I could do one of these things on the side. Uh, that's the famous last words for any entrepreneur, right? But, my family owned this, downtown sports bar called Stats at the time, and I took a small interest in the company to do the brewery for them. So it's the Atlanta downtown sports bar still, it's the brewery, it's called Stats, and it's, in the middle of a chain of restaurants, and that was my first one I did. So, no one taught me how to do that.
Okay.
That's really why you're doing the show is like, people run around, "How'd you learn how to do all this stuff?" What did Matt Damon say in Good Will Hunting that you don't need a Harvard education, you just need, 10 cents for a public library, right?
For
So,
sure.
with these days, just looking on the internet back then and trying to figure it out, there was no AI, so it's, "Okay, well, I need to get this big system. Here's how I brew. Here's how I wanna make one that the cheapest that I can buy at the time, right? Because 'Cause I'm working for a company and I'll be a small part owner of everything. First brewery. I'm not gonna be the brewer, so I'm doing it right. I'm running it like a business. I need to hire a brewer, which I can do. I need a brewery architect. All this stuff is pretty new, and licensure. So that's the other thing. Gotta go through the feds and everything. So that's just figuring it out. Uh, it's more fun to talking about this. Anybody who's actually watching this podcast instead of listening, seeing smile because that was more fun than doing real estate, right?
I'm
Is making
sure.
sure making people happy, but it's the same thing. So okay, so you're ahead of the trends, you know that. How fast can you move? You got to get money.
Right.
So my money source at that point was all these other restaurant partners who were convinced pretty easily that actually not convinced, but not easily. They just had to hear the argument that look around the country, every big city, Chicago, wherever would have some big brewery, and Atlanta didn't really have one. So
Okay.
we had a small one, but not next to all the stadiums, which is right where their spot was. And so I said, I can take this room and turn it into a brewery. I did that, and I loved it so much. I thought, well, I'm gonna do another one on the side, right? And I'll just own it myself. It'll be California had a bunch of them, like these pizza breweries. They're all mom and pops. Like you go in
Yeah.
there and then you brew beer. And my first one I built broke even on the whole time. So I got to own a cool brewery and a cool pub for I guess 8 years. But you don't make as much money off of something even if it's popular. Um,
Sure.
and that whole road was crazy. But during that time, I learned how to do these breweries. So I've done two in Atlanta in a year, and at 33 at this point. So thought, well, I can do a bunch more real quickly and start stamping it out. I did it for senior housing, right? So I did one in North Atlanta, I did another one in South Atlanta, I converted another one of them, and soon I had done 5 of these things. But the people that are really making money at this whole, we still interested in this brewery topic? Because the people that are making money in the US right now are either the bigger corporations or the ones that are even smaller than me that might have just got some really empty shell, spent $30,000 renovating it and brewing on their homebrew system, right? And then
Mhm.
all their friends and buddies come in and buy it, and then their friends come in, and that's really the way to start. Not at all what I was trying to do. The idea was that I could eventually all these breweries that I was building. I didn't want to get into distribution because that's where everybody gets killed. It's such a tough game.
Mhm.
Money's made there on the Kroger shelves and the public shelves. I'm saying that in terms of generic grocery stores, not to name one specific one. But your real profits come from people coming in to drink it there.
Sure.
So how does a brewery make money? It really starts with having good people work your bar and the owner being there. So I'm building this senior housing and I'm doing all these breweries on the side.
That's kind of
So
fun.
well, something's gonna win and something's not because it was a lot of time. And as a mom and pop shop, we never had a management company. So eventually it's gonna get too big. When you
Right.
own hotels or you own senior housing, you apartments, other things are a little bit different. But the two asset classes that I named typically need a management company. The reason being is there's so many calls from, hotels. You got all the residents, and then the senior housing, you get the residents and their families. So there's so many people, and think about, we got to be, about 1,100 rooms at some point for the Canterfield Senior Housing, and, it's too hard just for a couple people to manage all that by themselves. You have directors at the facility, but everything scales, is what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
going back to the place I was talking about for the brewery, and that might be a good place for me to stop and you to digest because it's been a lot of info. So I'm at this place in my life. I've started these 5 breweries in the senior housing, but I haven't yet realized because remember, I got out of college and started being an entrepreneur. I was lucky in its own way, but I didn't get to work for a corporation for 10 years and realize what not to do, or even though it moves so much slower. It's, we do stuff this way for a reason, right? I was
Right.
just figuring everything out on the fly my whole life, every single thing, because no one really taught me anything. So I'm back here. I've done these breweries. I've done this, all these senior housings. I've done all these other businesses on the side, which we can get to later. But I'm sitting here spinning plates, right? Trying to keep things going. So we started this conversation that way with what not to do, right? Even though I feel like I started off lucky, right? I got someone to get me in the front door day one,
Yeah.
right? You might spend 20 years and 30 years, be my age now, just starting off doing this stuff, right? Which is, look at people's pictures of real estate development companies. It's typically 40, 50, 60 is not a lot of younger people doing it. It's from
Sure.
having done it their whole life. So I started, but had to reinvent the wheel for everything. So my brain's like super focused entrepreneur, but has no idea about any other thing, how it's supposed to go from the corporate world, if you understand.
Yep.
So it's like it's a double-edged sword. So I'm sitting here in my mid 30s spinning plates, and this is right before COVID happened,
Yeah.
having all these patents underneath of me for a wound care company, an insurance company, and then the senior housing and the brewery companies that I was starting. So, what not to do as an entrepreneur? And we're about 15 minutes into this conversation, but I think it's a good one forward is start too many businesses at once.
Right.
And it doesn't mean don't take your eye off the ball. It means at some point you can hire people to do your job for you, right? And that should be when you start your business. In my world, that should be where you're trying to get. I mean, that's it. Is at some point, can this thing exist without me?
Right.
Right. And if you can say yes, then that means that you've done something. You've actually built it. Until then, you're still in the first part of the building phase.
The plate spinning, right? The
Yeah.
plate spinning phase
The
as
plate
opposed
spin,
to the
the plate spinning, but you should just be spinning that one plate, just one,
Right.
maybe two, or a small one on the side, but it's just one plate.
So talk a little bit about what you learned in those spinning of the plates, right? So there's a major transition and not even a full transition. You're kind of doing them both at the same time between the senior housing and the breweries. And I know you have some other side things that you were working on too. But talk a little bit about what you learned in that transition and what would the differentiation in the operating procedures from either side and what you kind of learned from having to do both.
Sure. Um, I'm in a unique position because I did this assisted livings, which have kitchens and everything else. But I mean, I started off with the white shoes job, building them and hiring people without starting on the ground. Brewery stuff, I started on the ground. So I am
Okay.
there with all the minimum wage people that I've hired. I am doing the work. I'm teaching everybody, teaching them values, teaching all the stuff that I really should have learned. I mean, most high schoolers, including me, get a job. I was a lifeguard, so I did deal with people before I started a
Sure.
hotel and everything else. And Myrtle Beach lifeguard and a country club lifeguard, but then and worked in the gym. And then after that, it was basically I'm gonna call it a white shoes job because let's be real, I'm not talking to the hourly people. I'm talking to bankers. I'm talking to the executive directors who I'm hiring and firing as an early 20-year-old, right? And, so I learned quick having to start. Like I said, I just entrepreneur at heart. It was so interesting learning to deal with everybody. Is from the opposite socioeconomic group than I was, the absolute opposite. And they could be coming out of college and they could be my age, just in the mid 30s at that point. And, they're just different life track. And I think it was pretty humbling. It was the first part of it. I remember an employee. So he worked for the restaurant group that I was talking about in downtown Atlanta, and he was a higher up. He was. little bit older than me. He said, Alan, he said, I can still talk to all these people was that I've worked it. He was an executive there. Said the group said I've worked it all. He said lots of people who are older than me just can't because they never really had to do it or just their generation missed that. Even they done it 30, 40 years ago. Stuff changes so much. And that's what people forget. Like it is so different than it was 30 years ago. The way people
Absolutely.
think is different than 30 years ago. My point is to go back, and I keep on going on these tangents, but they mean something is the brewery stuff. I learned pretty quickly that to run a restaurant, everybody everybody has to be respected the same way, no matter what your background is.
Hmm.
Typically, the poor managers at these places don't get it. I remember hiring almost he didn't last long, but I said, "Well, what about talking to all the kitchen staff? How good are you at cooking?" I said, "Oh, I don't ever have to do that. I got employees to do that." That's not what happens for a restaurant. Just stuff
Right.
goes wrong all the time, right?
Right.
And they're looking for a leader. It's so hard to find. So trying to do that and be around and actually had to brew the beer because I had to fire my brewer so many times. That's a skill. I didn't realize I hire somebody to do it. So I was brewing beer. I was trying to be there to for the restaurants and trying to build the senior housing. So there's 2 different hats at the same time, and I'm answering your question. It was very difficult because I
Sure.
go into work in the morning in my office, you try to get my emails done, work as efficiently as possible, so I can go over there and try to brew beer or move beer and talk to people and run restaurant
Yeah.
stuff, which didn't make any money, right? So, but it was what I wanted to do, and I was worried I'd be too old and never be able to do it. And looking back, hindsight, stuff changes so much. I mean, if I want to start a brewery now, and not had done it back then, now everybody's done it. And back then, I
Yeah.
was one of the first. So
Right.
it's like I disagree with people say do it later if it really means something to you. I mean, it took a lot of my life out of me, but I know all about beer and brewing and restaurants from it, which is totally different than senior housing and building stuff. So come back to how did it work? It was learning how to do 2 different lives, and I'm from a position now that understand where everybody's coming from who's working for me, every single
Sure.
person.
Yeah.
The cleaners that I mean, I know lots of them. So
Which helps, right? It certainly
yeah,
gives
it
you a
does.
different perspective.
It does. So that's how I was able to do it. It's just split my time up. But you can only do that so much, and stuff's not gonna be run perfectly when you're doing that. And remember, I'm not just doing one of these things, I'm doing multiple all over the place, and I'm still growing the senior housing business without a management company. So it's just lots of plate spinning. I probably did too much of that. So that's life lessons if anybody's ever listening to this.
There you go. Let's go back to the patterns for scalability. That's something you mentioned a little while ago, and I think that's an amazing kind of concept, right? Is you look for the patterns and things, and then you figure out those patterns in order to scale. Talk a little bit about that. Give us a little example of a pattern or patterns that you found and how you scaled from them.
Like talk about assisted living easily. It's changed a little bit, but let me give you a better example that's more relatable. So I still remember from Emory, one of the teachers for he said is he got hired to work at Papa John's to help them scale. Okay, pizza's relatable to everybody. And most people have heard of Papa John's. Okay, so he was trying to explain, well, how do I put another pizza restaurant in? Like, where do I go? Right? How do I figure it out? And that was super simple because for pizza, you don't really care about um, how rich someone is or demographics. You really don't if you think about Papa John's and Domino's. And that's not the bottom of the barrel. People eat it. Is that white cheese people eat it and everybody eats it. So
Right.
everybody likes pizza. So it's like, okay, so where do you put Papa John's? So he basically just got out this stencil and drew a circle around this one and then a circle around that one and said, here's where they all go, right? This is where they all go. This is you want to find something within this kind of spot. And it was that simple. Um, for Papa John's and commodities like that, I still think that method works. If you have some good idea and you're scaling, let's say you're what brands do people know that are ubiquitous? I don't even know how many there are anymore. Chick-fil-A, right? So if I was Chick-fil-A, that's the one that could go all over the country right now.
Sure.
Uh, they are the same thing as driving distance. So people eat that if they can get it. It's not about any type of money thing. So if I was them trying to expand, I did the exact same thing. When
Right.
you get into senior housing or hotels, it's a little bit different because then you're looking at socioeconomics and who can pay for it, who can't. If it's a Medicaid state. There's lots of things, lots of other factors that come in. So again, two different worlds. Pizza versus senior housing. So if I'm doing senior housing, I'm doing the same type of circle circle spot thing I'm talking about, looking for where something's missing. I always call it a hole on the map. But I'm also taking into account demographics, right? So I'd say this: how many people are aged from here to here? How many people are aged from here to here? I know that I'm going to penetrate with a certain amount of income and a certain demographic. I'm going to get a certain amount of seniors that need senior housing.
Sure.
Assisted living's a need. It's not really a want, unfortunately. Something our country is trying to figure out. Uh, but for most of us, it's private pay. So it's okay. Can you afford it really? And if you can, you're gonna do it. Uh, there's all kinds of nuances. Like, is it going to be the people our age putting our parents in one? Like, am I going to put one in Atlanta? Or, someone else going to put it in Charlotte, someone else going to put it wherever they live, versus me building one in Atlanta and say, I know this is going to get full from the people that live here, right? So you're looking at that. So you're looking at the seniors themselves. You're looking at the kids who make the decisions for the parents too. So then you're looking at the existing inventory. So I talked about Papa John's with the circle method, which is so true for so many businesses. That's probably most of them, right? But for the one I'm talking about, you got to look at your competitors, make sure it's not overbedded. That's what you call. There used to be something called certificate of need, quote unquote, or CON for assisted livings, and that was to prevent this exact thing that I'm talking about, which is overbedding, because
Sure.
it's technically healthcare. You regulated, you have nurses. I got the last CON in Georgia, I believe, about 20 years ago for the Caneyville property. Um, and it was like 15 years ago. They stopped doing it. Most states just stopped doing it because they realized that we needed more senior housing
Huh.
a lot faster than it was getting built. I guess that was the reason. So it was deregulated in Georgia, easier just to build them. And
Right.
I believe that's happened across the country in their own states. But it's not technically overbuilt. Most places, senior housing is like hotels where they always have to be refurbished and people always want to live in the newest one. They give out apartments too.
Of
That's
course.
very relatable, right? So that's how those are two answers to your question. Or two very different answers, and both are
Yeah.
correct.
I love it. I
Mhm.
love it. So, with a few minutes left, I want to go through maybe something that you would recommend, right? So, what's some advice you would give to an entrepreneur who wants to jump into either something they know or something they don't really know? What advice would you give them?
Um, so someone called me the other day. This is a great story. Probably I keep on talking the stories, but it makes sense. So I have this AI patent. I figured out how to do the agent model before everybody else was talking about them, and have this AI theory and patent and program in Python that I did. And I said, well, like, is this going to be your full time job? That's the first thing I asked him, right? Because I thought, oh my gosh. So things to avoid. Are you sure you're committed? And he said yes. He said, yeah, I want to do it. I mean, the guy's pretty smart. He went to Georgia Tech, and I've known him for a long time. So it's okay as he wants to do this full time, and it was a good idea. And this thing could grow from him just talking to professionals around Atlanta. So he didn't have to go anywhere, right? So
Yeah.
that's another thing. So he could start this business for next to nothing if you can, find a programmer and get a demo, and get some institutions to take it on, just a few, right? Then I don't know if he wants to grow it or sell it. But my point is, he didn't have any cost, right? Don't start a
Right.
business where you got to hire somebody immediately. Do it so you can start doing it yourself. I mean, so try,
No.
try to do stuff. Try to do stuff yourself and not hire anybody. Like, did not hire anybody. If you're smart enough to get here, you do some research, learn stuff on AI, right?
Right. So, what's next for you, Alan? What exciting thing or could we look forward to seeing from you?
Right now, the coolest thing I'm doing right now is I've got a patent on building cannabinoid strains from hemp. Like, THC stuff. So I get the
Okay.
molecules from the isomers from hemp, which no one had done. So I patented it a few years ago. These long different combinations, like a certain amount of milligrams of this and this and this, and blend them all together with a reason to help you sleep, help you have energy, or
Okay.
to feel better, right? So I make these drinks in Atlanta instead of a brewery because of people aren't drinking as much. I make these THC drinks, and they're pretty
Nice.
popular. And the company is called TH Chill, and you can see it online if you're
I
ever
love
listening
it.
to this. But it's cute. I thought it was a clever name a few years ago because of the THC, but I'm kind of tired of it now.
Oh, I love it. Alan, any parting thoughts? Anything you think the whole world should know about entrepreneurship or starting businesses or running businesses?
Yeah, well, Kristen, thank you for asking that. I actually want to bring up what you and you do. So she's a consultant. Remember, I said don't hire anybody. That doesn't mean don't get help. I think you need help if you're starting a business. You need help immediately from all your friends. Uh, People who have done it. That's what really consultants are for. Lots of family members haven't done it. Lots of friends haven't done it. The fact that this guy actually knew me and was asking about AI is a rarity. So usually that's the consultant would come in and tell him what to do. Is probably what he's going to have to end up hiring anyways. So my point is, if you don't know what you're doing, try to catch up as fast as you can on your own. But it's usually too hard for most people, and realize that you're not alone thinking that, and that sometimes finding someone just to help start or get you put in the right direction will go a long way.
Sure. For sure. Well, thank you for that, Alan, and thank you for the amazing stories. It's so much fun to hear how so many different entrepreneur brains work and what you guys do and how you do it. It's absolutely impressive. So I appreciate your time, Alan, and I hope only the best for you.
Thanks, Kristen. Have a great rest of your day. Okay.
Thanks. You too.